and thank you for your time. And congratulations on the movie, really creepy. Your cinema is full of references to the 70s, but this movie is a proper tribute to that genre. And in the 70s, porn and slasher exploded as a genre. So where does the idea come from of mixing up these two genres?
Well, it was a couple things. I wanted to make a slasher movie, and traditionally slasher movies have always had this sort of exploitation of sex and violence in this kind of lowbrow sort of way. And I was trying to think of a way to do something a little bit, I don't know, more thoughtful with that, I suppose, and modernize that a little bit. And horror and porn, they've always had this sort of symbiotic relationship of the outsider genres, particularly in the 1970s. You know, you could make a horror movie or an adult movie and have nothing to do with the movie industry. You could make it completely independently with non-famous people, and you could go to movie theaters and you could show that movie and you could find a business for that movie. Also, I wanted to make a movie that really highlighted like my reverence for the craft of cinema. So I wanted to make a movie about people making a movie, but I didn't want to make a movie about people making a horror movie, because then that would become too meta, and I wasn't interested in that. So I was thinking that in the 1970s, when you made an adult movie, you know, you still had to make the rest of the movie. It wasn't just the sex scenes. It was a 90-minute plus movie that played in movie theaters that had all of the dramatic scenes, even if they weren't great. You still had to film them. And the process of making a porn movie then versus now are very different. And then it was just like making any other movie. It just happened to have different subject matter. And that was really kind of where the idea started from.
I would like you to talk about the sound design of the movie, because I think the sound design is the main responsible for the tension for a lot of scenes, of the best scenes.
Larry Fessenden, who produced my earlier movies, would always joke that, you know, in movies you had one image, but you have 99 tracks of sound. And so it was a budget-friendly way to make things, you know, bigger and better. But with this movie, you really needed to feel like you were in the environment. And so sound design is a big part of that. And Graham Resnick did a great job as far as all of the Texas atmospheric sounds of crickets and cicadas and winds and all that stuff. And that stuff, you know, what outside sounds like versus what inside sounds like and things like that. And then, you know, this playing around with the idea of sounds you're familiar with and then manipulating them as the movie goes on, as the movie starts to change. All of this stuff is very subtle, and you wouldn't notice it outright, but it leads to the experience that you're saying. And, you know, a lot of times if you're in the dark, what you hear is scarier than what you see. And that's a big part of it. And then Tyler Bates and Chelsea Wolfe did an amazing job with the score, kind of having this organic, it kind of grows out of the sound design and out of the, you know, human being type sounds. And that was all part of it, is to try to give it a very, you know, unique and identifiable sound to this movie. So it didn't sound like, you know, any other movie that was out.
I don't know if this is true for you, but for me, in a certain way, from the point of view of Howard and Pearl, this is a kind of a love story. And I think you told that story in a very delicate and intimate way. Do you agree with this love story?
Yes, I mean, that was the goal, was to, it's a, how should I put it? It's an odd and unexpected love story. But that was what it was meant to be. And you know, certainly the scenes when they're finally having sex was like, when you're shooting that, it was very much like, there's a lot going on here. There's actually this sort of love story that's being like, their relationship is being repaired. And then there's the like dark nature of how that's come to be. And those are just interesting contrasts and whatnot. And that was always the plan, was to do more or less what you're saying.